Hello and good morning, and welcome to your daily sit rep for Friday, the 14th of November, 2025. I'm your host, Mike Shelby. We have a lot to get to today. So, Robert, good morning. Let's go ahead and jump inside the Beltway here.
Good morning. So yesterday, Attorney General Pam Bondi said that a man confronted New Jersey U.S. Attorney Alina Habba at her office on Wednesday and apparently fled the scene after destroying some property in the office during the confrontation. And according to the New York Times, they said two sources told him that the man was initially stopped by security when he tried to enter the building with a baseball bat, but then was allowed to enter after he returned without the weapon. FBI said they're still looking for the person, and they're going to release some details, I think, later today.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And also, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police said they're investigating the detonation of an improvised explosive device yesterday. And according to the police department, they said the two men dressed in black placed an IED outside of a restaurant at 2:19 a.m. Pacific time yesterday. But the explosion was not reported until employees showed up at 10:30 p.m. or 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. They also said no one was injured. So to me, this looks like it could be something like a test run of a device. Someone who has put together a device, tested it in a controlled environment, and they're looking to see what kind of damage that explosive design would do to, for example, a building. Mm-hmm. But no other details are known yet.
An IED outside a restaurant has major Iraq vibes. Are police releasing any details, like what kind of restaurant? Could it be ethnic or religious? Or
they said it was an Italian restaurant. So I'm not sure yet. It doesn't look like there's any clear motivation for the bombing itself, and it was unoccupied at the time. Mm-hmm. So I'm still waiting for them to release more details. They did say that the two men, one of them apparently the one who placed the device, approached the restaurant on a scooter, dropped the device, and sped away. But that was all that was the only details they released.
Okay, does not have the hallmark of any kind of, or at least that I can see, of any kind of far left or far right style terrorism. So maybe it was a signal. Maybe someone needs to pay back their loan or something. I don't know. All right, let's go ahead and move on to this latest. Trump DOJ joins a lawsuit to try to stop this redistricting in California, which was approved. Wasn't that Prop 50 that passed just last week or so?
Correct. So they're joining this lawsuit that was filed by the California Republican Party, and they're trying to stop this new map from taking effect. And they're claiming that while the public advertisement for Prop 50 was that this was a partisan gerrymander, that California Democrats among themselves and in the actual state legislature said that this was a racial gerrymander. So they're suing, claiming that this is an illegal racial gerrymander under the Voting Rights Act. I think this is interesting because this is an indicator. I think that the Trump Department of Justice is expecting the Supreme Court to rule that the VRA Section 2, that they're going to strike that down. And it would be soon enough for it to actually impact the 2026 election.
So best case scenario for the Trump administration, Supreme Court strikes down Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which thereby essentially stops this California redistricting, maybe removing those +5 Democrat seats heading into the 26 midterms.
Yeah, and because the language of the Voting Rights Act Section 2, the actual language would make racial gerrymanders illegal, but over the course of the last 6 decades, case law has been used to have it mean the opposite, to allow racial gerrymandering. And if they do, depending on how the Supreme Court decision, which looks likely to rule in the Trump administration's favor and Republicans' favor, this would give them 19 possible seats and also potentially take away this +5.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And then heading over to North Carolina, there's, this is a form of protest, but there's a Democrat who is saying that she's going to change her party affiliation from Democrat to Republican in order to run in the Republican primary.
Yeah, this is Kate Barr, who ran last year as a state senator in the same district as a Democrat, which she said was intended to lose as a protest against gerrymandering. She said now she's running against Tim Moore, who's a Republican representative from North Carolina, in the primary next year. And there was a former Democratic Party strategist, Asher Hildebrand, said that he expects that there will be more of these Democrat candidates that he said with quote heterodox views that will start switching their parties to run in primary elections. Because Barr, when she announced that she was doing this, called on Democrats and other Republican states where they have where she said they've had extreme partisan gerrymandering to switch parties to run as Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Okay, something that's happening here in Texas is there's been this push to close our primaries. So Texas has open primaries so Democrats can vote in the Republican primaries if they want, and they're trying to close them, which is somewhat related. And to be honest, I bring that up because I don't think anyone's real sure exactly how that could change the primary system. But let's be honest, Democrats have been running as Republicans for a long time. They're just now doing it openly here, I guess. All right, and then finally, we've been kind of keeping track of this ICE training pipeline, but Customs and Border Patrol has their own, and so they're expecting hundreds of more Border Patrol agents to hit the streets.
Well, so this was from an interview yesterday with CBP official Greg Bovino. He said that this is a quarterly training, a normal quarterly training, but there are several hundred CBP agents in West Virginia now training and preparing for the next federal surge. He did not confirm that it would be Charlotte, North Carolina, but he did say that Charlotte is one of the possible next targets. He also mentioned Cleveland, Ohio, and potentially New York for where they could go after they're done with this training in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then they will be redeployed from Chicago to this. Is that what's happening here? Chicago would be winding down and they're going to hit the next city, or no?
Well, he said actually Chicago's not winding down, but he did not say. He said that they could possibly redeploy these hundreds of federal agents to Chicago, which would be, I think, an increase of where Midway Blitz, the amount of CBP agents that have been in Midway Blitz so far. But he was very vague about where they would be going. He did say Chicago is a possible redeployment location, so it would be an increase of the current surge.
Mm-hmm. All right, tracking. All right, thanks for that. And we'll move over to the Global Sit Rep. Jared, good morning. So it's still officially Secretary of Defense, but whatever. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, announced on his Twitter account, this Operation Southern Spear, which is this Western Hemisphere-wide counter-drug operation. Is that what we're looking at here?
Yes. The details so far are sparse. Haven't seen an official release aside from his official account. So it is counter-narcotics. It's for the entire Western Hemisphere, and he says it's specifically, to protect the U.S.'s neighborhood here. So I think that's going to be expanding operations down through South America, not just in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm. And then actually on that note, Ecuador this weekend will vote on whether or not to reestablish U.S. bases that were closed in 2009. And the Ecuadorian president does expect this vote to pass already, but anonymous Ecuadorian authorities said that even a no vote on this will not derail security plans with the United States. They're moving forward on counter narcotics. And then still staying in Latin America, Daniel Elkins, the founder and president of the Special Operations Association of America, said yesterday on a discussion on Venezuela that peaceful transition of power is the ideal, but we have SOF, the Special Operations Forces, presence in the region to give the president optionality in case we need it. So if peaceful operations don't work, their special forces are there.
Yeah, I mean, that unconventional warfare is an SF mission, and of course the United States has options. Jared, we were talking about that yesterday afternoon. It didn't appear to me like that's necessarily a veiled threat or any kind of foreshadowing, like the United States using any kind of special operations troops to overthrow the Maduro regime. But we sure have a lot of assets in that region that could potentially do it.
Yeah. To me, the most important thing here is there's been a lot of speculation that they would be in the region, but there's not really been anything confirming. Here's somebody that would know or should know, saying they are in the region. They are prepared in case they need it. That's kind of the same thing that the U.S. as well. It's not there as a direct threat, but if it's needed, it is. A lot of it is there. Mm-hmm. And then finally, we're going to move over to Asia. The Chinese Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Defense both condemned the Japanese Prime Minister for her promise to intervene against the Chinese military action on Taiwan if they ever take it. And China's vice foreign minister even summoned the Japanese ambassador to demand that the Japanese prime minister recant. Now, this is all following on from the Chinese diplomat in Japan threatening to behead the Japanese prime minister over these comments. So that has not been condemned at all by the Chinese.
That's a little alarming. But Jared, let's go back. So the new Japanese prime minister came out and said Chinese action on Taiwan would be an existential threat to Japan, basically implying Japan would have to get involved.
No, not implying. She said it is survival threatening. We will get involved.
Okay, okay. So that's setting this up, and now the Chinese are reacting to that.
Yes, okay. It's gone much farther than merely internal to Japan, sort of with the consul general there from China, but now everybody, almost all the way up to Xi Jinping, has said, no, you need to pull this back.
All right.
And then over in South Korea, the South Korea and the United States agreed to give South Korea uranium enrichment. It's technically for civilian purposes, but they are providing uranium enrichment. South Korea does not currently have that ability. Now, the U.S. is already changing the balance of power in the Pacific with the U.S.-Korea submarine deal, which I think is likely to use an American reactor, just the same way as AUKUS would, the Australia, UK, US submarine deal. But South Korea gaining the enrichment capabilities also makes it easier for them to unilaterally develop nuclear weapons because they have the enrichment process then. That's similar to what we've seen in Iran. And there has already been talk of, from South Korea, should we develop our own nuclear weapons? And is the U.S. reliably going to provide us a nuclear umbrella? In the same deal, the U.S. did say, we are still going to provide you the nuclear umbrella. So I think they're trying to mitigate the risk of that, of South Korea unilaterally developing them.
All right. Tracking. Thanks for that. Quick question here, since it came up. Didn't they officially change it to the Department of War? Pictures show Hegseth even putting up the sign on the building yesterday. Well, Jared, let's talk about this because I'm still seeing documents being released with the Department of Defense logo. They do not say Department of War, at least on some of the official reports that I've read over the past couple months. My understanding is the Department of War is basically like a doing business as name. The DOD is doing business as the Department of War. It's not an official name change. Is that understanding correct? Like, let's get clear on exactly what that is.
If I remember right, when all this first came out, it was to be understood as unofficial, and the official name change would have to be legislated.
Passed by Congress.
Yeah. Okay.
And Robert, do you know of any efforts by Congress to officially change the name?
No, not yet. Last I saw, I think was some Republican lawmakers say it would cost like $2 billion to change the name. So there's been some, there's like not been any movement on it.
Honestly, what's another $2 billion? I mean, really, $38 trillion in national debt, $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities. What's another $2 billion? I say that tongue in cheek, of course. All right. So at any rate, I noticed this on X. I'll say the Department of Defense because officially it's still the DOD, and I'll get jumped on. It's the Department of War. Well, it's still the Department of Defense technically. All right. So thanks for that, gents. Let's go ahead and move on. 384 protests this weekend which is about it's within the baseline roughly. Again, maybe you get tired of hearing me say this. Go out if you see a yellow dot. Number one, check our protest and riot tracker and look at these events near you and go down to the protest. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. For early warning members, I'm going to publish just kind of a one-pager, some best practices on how to attend a left-wing protest as a Trump supporter. Probably don't go down there with a MAGA hat on. But I'll give you some things that I do when I go attend these protests. Go down there and see who's down there. See which political groups and are active in organizing and see what they're saying and see what they're doing and see how they're putting out information. Start up a burner email address and hand that thing out like candy. Get on as many email lists as you can, as many as they offer. Whatever. You got a burner phone number, go get on a phone tree. Stay in contact, or allow them to stay in contact with you, because when they're pushing out information, this is going to be so big. I kind of been hinting at the spring offensive that I think we're going to see next year. And, spring offensive, kind of vague, but things are going to ramp up next year as this protest movement shifts into organized resistance. It's going to be a lot more disruptive. Be ahead of this curve. See what these groups are saying. And with that, we'll move on. All right, coming up on the early warning portion of the brief, as always, we take your questions and we get into details on some things that you want to know. But otherwise, we have the Homeland Operations briefing, and then we'll also be breaking down this latest move by the State Department to label some Europe-based Antifa groups as foreign terrorist organizations. That is an official designation, and we'll break down what that means for domestic Antifa groups. Head over to forwardobserver.com/trial. Join us for a free 7-day trial to our early warning service, and head over to that website or that webpage, and you'll be able to see what all is included in the early warning subscription. With that, everyone, thanks so much for watching the Daily Sit Rep. This is the free portion of the brief. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, a great weekend. Sit Rep folks, we'll be back on Monday. Early warning folks, please stand by. And Jared, please take us out.